screen. Every time you open a white screen, all we get is just this glowing orb in the middle of
Only
the
use the finger of God when your game isn't being recorded.
These are true things.
I want to do it to...
Look at these show notes. They're actual show notes.
Are they?
I do that. I kind of do that.
I didn't look at them.
I do that every
God
show.
damn it, Jason.
Wait, that you know what that also means? That means McWaters has not seen show notes since we first started bringing him on. It's like they're actual show notes, Will. It's like I do that for you every time.
So I'll tell you a secret. I've seen show notes once out of the 3 or 4 times I've been on. Every other time, I'm just like, I guess we're winging it, boys.
And it turns out I did show notes every time for you.
Matt,
Probably.
Matt, I've only seen them 3 or 4 times out of the 100 and so times I've been on. So don't feel bad, man. Don't feel bad.
Well, you're just drinking anyway.
I don't feel bad.
No.
I feel sick. It's fine.
All right.
Wow, this is a very Okay, I'm gonna sit back. Maybe that. Nope. Okay, let's close down that window. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Now you look human
Now
again.
you're like, I don't need the show notes.
You look less supernatural. I think you should turn it back on.
Oh, you want it back? All right. Here
Supernatural Matt.
It looks like that. He looks like the clown from that. What's the name of that horror movie?
Oh, Captain Spaulding from Host of a Thousand Corpses.
That's what he looks like. He looks like the
Devil's
guy from that.
Rejects.
Yeah, totally. I have not actually watched that.
The Devil's Rejects is an amazing movie.
I don't watch horror movies. They scare me.
That's the point.
I have vivid enough nightmares as it is.
Yeah.
My brain is a nightmare.
I read that as gold nuns, Baron. That was very weird for a second.
Gold Nuggets?
No, nuns. I just need to grind for my golden nuns. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, I read it as Gold Nuns just then too. Gold guns. I don't understand what's going on.
I'm guessing
So,
he's talking.
Oh, is he
So you
talking
guys
about
recording at the Sioux?
We are. We're going to be streaming games.
Yep.
The setup is going to be much pared down, and then we'll bring in a host table for the finals games, maybe the semifinals, depending on how our games go.
How hungover we are.
How hungover we are. How much sleep George needs. There's impending circumstances. George's surgery, and we are
Jason's alcoholism.
And to be straight up honest, like the last 2 Sioux, we worked the whole con and didn't really get to play much. So this year we're changing it up. We're gonna
Point a camera at the table.
Yeah.
So are you guys gonna play in the champs or masters?
I'm probably gonna do masters, and
I'm just gonna Iron Arena.
Yeah.
Because I don't have painted lists and masters scare me.
What do
yeah.
you mean you don't have painted lists?
He means his lists are not painted.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how else
no
to
time.
parse that.
I could if I worked. So I've got about 20 more models to paint to be fully painted for 2 lists. I don't know if I could get a third.
Well, you don't have to be fully. I mean, you don't have to be. It's not 3 lists for champs. It's only 2 lists for champs.
Okay, but
So
still, it's still a lot of painting to do in a week and a half.
I'm down
I
with
mean,
that, Ron
standards will just
I
lower
lowered
your
them.
standards
I
a bunch.
can't do it. Actually, to be honest, my standards are so far down
Just
from
lend-
from normal right now.
Lend them to me. I'll bring them back to
Well,
you
that's
painted.
that's mostly because you're painting my models, right? You're like, fuck.
Well,
this
no,
noise.
actually, I'm on my own models.
Oh
now.
no,
Like,
shit.
we got to remember, your models were like quarter of what I needed for a good.
Oh, yeah.
Grim like,
Well,
you're
I
like,
just figured.
here's 3 things that I got in a battle box, Will, and then I've had to paint everything.
Well, I
else.
figured that's why you were painting mine like shit, and then yours would take a long time.
Yeah. Well,
So, in the week leading up to Adepticon, I had to paint 56 models.
Fuck.
So, it worked out to be about 8 models a day, 8 to 9 models a day. I had like 9 days to do it, something like that.
That's too much.
And I got it done the night before at 5 o'clock in the morning.
nice.
Yeah. And
That's why you did so well in round 4.
And you were so tired, you just couldn't do it.
I mean, we can dive into it, but I did real bad day 1. I punted a game so hard to left field. It was so good.
We'll talk about that in 13 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. We'll hear all about punting of games.
It was real good.
So, other topics that we need to talk about. Super important discussions for this evening. Jason,
Oh,
what are you watching on TV right now? Have you watched anything new?
I was watching something. What was it? No, I
No.
don't remember.
Sounds
that
really good.
It
Yeah.
must have been amazing.
Yeah.
It blew, oh,
George is
Jessica Jones. Season
Oh
2.
yeah, I've heard. I haven't watched. I've watched through the first episode. I have not.
Wait, Jessica Jones season 2?
Yeah.
Mm.
When did that come out?
Matt's like, I'm gonna watch that right now.
It's
It'll be better than your show, dickwads.
Jessica Jones season 2? Really?
Yeah.
I'm in, boys.
Yeah. So I'm on episode 5, and I'm waiting for something to happen.
That would be well. This is the problem with the Marvel television show. At first, we were like the Netflix versions. We were like, this is awesome. We finally have a show that like spans or a move like a Marvel movie that takes the time to do.
Character
Now we're
development.
like, get to the motherfucking action, yo.
Or do something.
Do something other than stand around and whine about how your brother took all your money.
Yeah.
George has had a lot of time to sit around the house and do nothing but watch television shows, mainly tentacle porn.
Actually, surprisingly little tentacle porn.
Surprisingly,
When you're really
so
sick.
only like
He
5
has-
hours
he
a
has-
day.
He has a quota, guys. He has a quota, and he has to hit the quota. But
Yeah.
anything over that quota is
Surprisingly
just
little.
pleasure at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
So we watched this. June and I watched this show called the Family Cooking Showdown or something like that. It's a British Netflix series where two families cook off.
Yeah.
Like they cook home meals type of
Oh,
thing.
yes, I've seen that.
The one of the judges is this Italian dude, and we've decided we're going to create a drinking game because one of the things he does is he goes, "I cannot hide my disappointment." it's like every time he says that, we have to do a shot from now on, and he says it surprisingly enough that you'd probably get loaded on it. I cannot hide my disappointment.
It's like the Steve Zissou of disappointing reality TV.
Exactly. I'm not really. I got through the first episode of Jessica Jones, and then I haven't been able to sit down because I was supposed to take a week off this week and just do painting and fun stuff. And since I got home, I've been working.
Yeah.
Yay!
I didn't even know season 2 had come out. I guess I have 15 models to paint for the Sioux, so I guess that's what I'm doing.
Right.
There was something else
2 a day, Matt. You can
came
do it, buddy.
out on the 28th.
What about the new
Season
Lost in
2 of
Space?
something.
Lost in Space is coming soon too.
Yeah, I don't know when that's out.
The trailer.
Let's
looks cool.
see. What TV show airs tonight? Let's go. Google save us.
Did anybody watch the new Roseanne?
No, not yet.
No.
Did you?
No, I haven't.
I didn't watch the old Roseanne. I don't know why.
Oh, you
What's
didn't
the
watch
new
the
one?
old
Boys,
Roseanne,
We
dude?
got it. I figured out what's airing tonight.
What is it?
Survivor Ghost Island.
Oh,
Let's
no.
go.
Jesus
I
Christ.
just figured that was every night there was a Survivor airing.
Yeah,
I can't believe they're still making that shit. Oh, Suits is tonight.
Oh, there we go.
That's a good show.
Yeah.
We've been
That's a
watching.
good show.
We just started the first season of that. Like we just started watching Suits.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Suits is enjoyable.
It is enjoyable. It's like a comedy drama, a dramedy,
I love dramedies
dramedy,
and dramedies.
Dram-
Jesus
Dromedaries?
Christ.
dromedary.
Moose Machine airs tonight.
Ugh.
I wouldn't watch that.
There's gotta-
No
gotta
quality
be-
content there.
There's got to be something better on than that.
We had some good like show notes today, Jason. There were some hilarious ones we were going back and forth. I wish I could
we were
remember
gonna
them.
ask Matt how he takes a scrub tier faction like Crix all the way to the top.
Well, it takes a lot of skill to play probably the strongest or second strongest faction in the game.
Yeah. And win.
Wait. Well, sorry, no, it takes no skill. Sorry, my bad, guys. My bad. I was confused. For a
Pretty
second there.
much what I did. So basically, I should just get rid of the show notes and we'll just preface this with all I did was move my models forward. And
Oh shit, you were back on
all of
Kador?
his stuff
Back
died.
on Kador?
Honestly, like, I mean, I guess we're not going to get into it now, but it's funny, like, the different conversations I've had since Adepticon and, like, the different perceptions of how the game's played. Like, when people talk about Gatsby 3 9 Slayers, they often talk about moving your stuff forward. And so post-Adepticon, people were like, oh, you played 9 Slayers to victory. And I was like, I didn't even, Gatsby 3 is not in Champions. I don't get it.
Oh yeah, champions. You have to even have something in the champions, like in the.
You have to use the casters from the champions.
I mean, you get
Oh.
Denny too. So, like, there's,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
you're playing that for almost all your games anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
you're playing
And
Denny
then-
2 and whatever.
Agathia.
Yeah.
Aggie, really?
So,
The dark
Um,
horse factor, man.
Agathea does a whole lot for Slaughterfleet. Slaughterfleet struggles getting delivered and with Pathfinder because they only have it on the charge.
Yeah.
And she fixes both of those problems really, really well. And then she also has a damage buff, so it kind of hits all the nails on the head that you want for the list.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. It's good to see Aggie on the table.
Yeah, a lot of the people, like when I was telling them my pairing, they were like really, really surprised. They were like, Agathea, why? And then they would be like, oh, you top a two'd me. I'm like, I sure did.
Yeah.
That just happened.
Are you enjoying Slaughterfleet, Matt? I suppose we should probably be saving this
okay,
for later,
so-
but
Let's save it. We'll save it.
we'll save it for
Put
later,
it away,
but
boys.
It looks
Put-
really awesome.
Zip up your pants.
A lot of fun.
We'll talk about your Crixes later.
All right.
Oh, another
Fine.
5 minutes.
We coined a new expression today.
What was it?
Damn it, damn it. What was it? Warma penis?
Warminess.
Damn it. We'll think of
That's
it
what
later.
happens when you get old, boys.
No,
Yep.
so the thing this is a common conversation between two War Machine players. I'm gonna play my Dreamer list. Oh yeah? Well, I'm gonna play if you won't have a chance if I do X.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'll have
Well,
thing.
because it went like this. You were like, I'm going to kick your face in with Nayslayers. I was like, I'm just going to play Magic 1. You can't charge, and then they die.
and I was like, well then I wouldn't play Naysayers in a Magic 1. And that's we were like
I was like, well, fuck you. And then you're like, no, fuck you.
we
And
were
then you're like, no, fuck. Jesus, you're a dick.
but that's
Get out
pretty
of my
much
house.
that's pretty much it. We just had to compare our
Yeah, we just laid them on the table.
anyways.
And,
I mean, one of you had to lay on your bellies to get it on the table.
yeah,
Just saying.
that's what? Huh?
Half head, half shaft is normal, boys. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Sadness.
I don't understand what he's talking about.
You will.
when your shaft is half the size of your head.
What if your head's like 6 inches round?
My head is huge. I can't even fit most hats on my head.
So innocent. I don't.
So I was listening to a stand-up comedy bit the other night,
Yeah, let's
and
change the
there was a series of jokes about micro penises.
It was
and they
War
broke down-
Machinist. Thank you, Marbles.
Machinist.
It was
Oh,
our War
Marbles.
Machinist.
Marbles
Good
were
job. Good job, Marbles. Yes, we were comparing our War Machinists.
Oh, there you go.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. it is.
Hashtag comparing War Machinists.
Yeah.
Machine Eye. All right, continue, Matt. Sorry.
So they broke down the statistics. So it's like about 1 in 1,000 people have a micro penis. That's the statistic, 1 in 1,000 men. So there's a comedian doing stand-up, and he was like, this is an audience of 10,000 people. So that means there's 10 of you motherfuckers that have a really unfortunate life.
Huh.
And he's like, he starts doing the routine, and in the middle of the routine, he's like, everyone with a micropenis hates when you make micropenis jokes, but everyone loves when you make like giant dick jokes. So it's like this weird thing. You get like 10 or a thousandth of the audience that loves one joke and hates all the others. Just interesting. Statistics.
Statistics.
Statistics?
Joe Rogan, I think, is the comedian.
Joe Rogan can be pretty funny sometimes.
I like Joe Rogan.
All I know him from is from that news radio, talk radio. Was it news radio?
It was news radio.
Yeah,
with
news
Dave
radio.
News
Foley.
radio.
He does a new podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience. It's pretty okay.
I was like waiting for the follow up on that. It was pretty good.
And the punchline is
And Jupiter.
3 minutes out.
We are 3 minutes out, ladies and gentlemen. That means important things to discuss. I don't know. Do we have anything important? Oh, I was talking with. So next week on the show, we'll have Banky and Matt Clark.
Nice.
Are going to be on. We're going to do the preview to the preview to the SOO.
We couldn't get them this week.
Harsh.
Sad.
I mean, I can just go. It's fine.
So yeah, we'll have them on next week. We're gonna do our prequel. I did talk to Rich from Beer Machine, and we've got one night the Moose Machine Beer Machine crew is gonna all go out for dinner somewhere or something like that.
Okay,
So
cool.
and we'll make it an open invite to anybody
Just
who
not
wants
the
to join
honest
us.
lawyer.
No, I already threatened. I was like, what I was gonna do is be like, we'll meet you at the Honest Lawyer, and then we'll all go somewhere else and wait for Rich to
Yeah,
It's
So
just us.
I had supper with Rich last year at the Honest Lair, and I'm still kind of cringing and awkward about that situation. It did not go
no,
well.
it did not go. So Rich does not understand dive bars. I don't think he's like
yeah.
it's a dive bar, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a shithole.
It is a shithole.
The food is terrible.
The food is terrible, but they have beer, but they won't give
Yeah.
it to you
Yeah.
unless you wait an hour or
Yeah,
two.
exactly.
But the thing about it is it's close to the hotel, and they have tables,
Yeah.
and that was the whole point of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really convinced.
No, it's not a great place to go. So this year we'll go somewhere else
Yeah, we need to find somewhere else.
other than the hotel bar and
Yeah,
the
'cause
Honest
that
Lair.
costs a goddamn fortune. at the
Where
hotel
did I?
bar.
Yeah, I think I just ate exclusively at the hotel last time.
I usually eat most days. I'll go down to
I go
Foods
to
of the World or whatever,
yeah,
Tastes
Foods
of the
Oh
World.
yeah, the
Yeah.
first.
Nations or something.
Nations. Yeah.
Nations. I go there. That's pretty much a daily trip, and then the rest. And then dinner is usually like something that I go. Well, usually because I'm casting all day. George finishes up, and then I'm finally released into the world. I try to get a game in before but generally and then I go drinking with somebody, and then at one point or another I realize I should have eaten. That's kind of how.
Yeah, that's how it's happened before.
I mean, that's kind of the con experience in general. You don't eat as much as you should. You don't drink as much as you should, and then you actually drink too much.
Yeah.
I was going to say we actually I think drink more than we should.
30 seconds
Different
out,
kinds
boys.
of drinking.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are 30 seconds out. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Tonight's show is going to be a good one.
It is.
Mac back from
Adepticon.
Are we ready to hit that button? Oh, you said 30 seconds out, and it just
Just turned into
30 seconds. You lied. You lied to us. Why?
George can't count.
No,
I
it's
don't
because
think we
I have
can-
to tell you guys ahead of time.
I don't think we can trust.
So
George
you were
anymore.
you were giving us the 30-second warning for the 30-second warning?
Yep.
What's next? A trailer for a trailer?
Have I ever?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had already happened.
All right. You ready?
It's close
You
enough.
ready? Hit that button.
No.
Recording live from the Haley Sisters Memorial Studios, straight out of lovely Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your unofficial Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
Good evening. Really? That's how you're
Wow.
going to open it up? You like held on to that cough for just.
I didn't want to ruin the intro.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to have to edit it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Death Clock. We are doing a couple of Death Clocks this next. We're not going to do our painting cast next week. We're doing a couple of Death Clocks in a row. This is one of those two. We had to do a Death Clock this week because big news came from down south. Our buddy Matt McWaters came back a champion in Champions from
He did.
Adepticon. Yay! So we couldn't get him on the show, so we brought in this scrub that doesn't know much about War Machine. Actually, we're just kidding. Matt, congratulations. We're going to talk in depth about your win, but how was Adepticon for you?
Just to talk about the con experience in general. Going to Adepticon was a 2-day travel for me. I had to train to Toronto and then drive down with Tim, Evan, and Chris to Chicago. I mean, travel's fine. The con's great. Funny story though. They actually closed registration for the con a month before the con, and I wasn't registered
Oh.
Oops.
because I'm good at life. So Tim messages me and he goes, "Hey Matt, are you registered for Adepticon?" Or he's like, "Are you ready for Adepticon?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I still need to register." And he's like, "Registration closed." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Message Travis, we'll figure it all out." So I messaged Travis. He gets me into all the events. I register. Everything's fine. So the con was really great. It was really well organized from start to finish. So you show up. You go into. They had pre-registration the night before to pick up your badges. And you go into lines that are sorted alphabetically by your last name to pick up your badges. Tim and everyone had to go wait in a really long line while Evan and I, because we were in the H through P line or something like that, just went straight through, no line at all, picked up our badges, our swag bags and everything. And that was pretty much it for the Wednesday night we arrived. The con starts Thursday, just for those of you who have any intention of going. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday con. Really weird. It's an extra day. And it is a fully painted convention. You have to have every model based, painted, front arcs marked, even to play Iron Arena.
Oh,
Wow.
wow! I just figured it was for
That's
events.
ballsy. Well, it is that, but it is also the home of the Crystal Brush. So to a certain degree, I like that.
Makes sense.
Isn't that a holdover from when it was purely a 40K tournament?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not on their organizers panel, but I know PP doesn't have the same like rules, but they have to adhere to what the con rules are. Just for frame of reference, as far as painting requirements go at conventions, my experience has been that most WTC players and people who go to cons regularly will have almost fully painted armies all the time.
For sure.
It's something like, to play in some events you have to be painted, so they're painted anyways.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I mean, and if you're going to be playing all the time, if you're playing as many cons as, say, you or Marc-Andre or Tim or any of those guys play, you're just going to get to that point where all your crap's painted because it is your life. Yep. We'll get into big talk of Adepticon in a bit, but I got to do my due diligence and introduce everybody. So other than Matt on the show today, of course, we have the one and only Maelstrom, Jason Nichols,
Hey.
the one that everybody likes. And on my other side is the one and
By
only
implication.
and the other one. No, just kidding. And Semi-Automagic, the one and only George Schweitzer, the guy that makes sure that all this ticks over and the computers don't crash.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second.
How
do you pronounce your last name, George? Is it
Schweizer.
Schweizer or Schweitzer?
Schweizer. There's no
Okay.
T in it.
Oh, well, I've been pronouncing it wrong forever. I'm not going to change my ways now. Things that, of course, Jason,
Yes,
how you got in a game this week? How did
I
your
did.
game? How did your game go?
It went really well. I played against Striker 2. And I was playing
That son of a bitch.
Cole Grima, because as soon as I see Signar, I'm just like, I'm dropping Cole Grima because Signar. And then it was Striker 2, and I was like, shit. So it went really well. I had pretty much everything dead. I lost a unit of Raiders, and pretty much everything on his side was dead. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to Striker 2 you now. So he ate through a champ or two and got to within 2 inches of Cole Grima. Did like 25 damage on the first hit, but it was his last focus.
Ooh.
And I toughed it.
Oh, no.
Awesome.
Yeah.
George managed to we managed to get George out because we had an odd number at the pub, and
Yep.
even though George is still in recovery, the siren call went out.
Yeah.
George, so you got a game in. How did it
Yep.
go? through the drugs.
Unfortunately for my opponent, he wasn't paying attention to one of his own spells. But I managed to butcher Rask.
Was that the admonition debacle?
Yeah. So I charged in, pulled in Rask, and, butchered him to death. But the big problem there was that he had admonition, and he was like 3.5 inches away from
So
me.
he could have ad mode.
So if he had ad mode and walked away, he would have easily been out of the 5-inch range.
Right.
But he thought for some reason that it triggered within 3 inches instead of moving 3 inches.
Right.
And afterward, I'm like, I was really surprised you didn't run away. And he's like, well, you didn't get within 3 inches. And I'm like,
Yeah, it did work.
you should look at that spell again.
I've lost to an admonition enough
Was that
times.
Aubin?
No,
No.
it was David.
Aubin doesn't make those mistakes. He calls us on that bullshit.
yeah.
I got into my first game, my first non-dreamer game in 13
Thank
games
God.
or something like that. Because I need to practice a second list, so I built a heretic list that I've never seen anybody else play, but it was like, I'm going to give this a try.
And it turns out there's a reason.
No, it's actually pretty good.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty solid. So it's basically it hinges. The hinge point on it is heretic, with in bump with all of the like a lot of the units in the game, but 2 units of Nayslayers, and it hinges around then being able to deliver the Nayslayers and rotate Fury between the 2 Nayslayer units, which turns out is pretty amazing. I haven't had a chance to play Nayslayers yet because they're not in my Dreamer list. but I now understand why people are saying they're kind of good.
Yeah.
I watched them take out a Kador Clamjack, 3 of them, solo.
Yeah.
In one round of Kador Clamjack, which
He was closed or open?
yeah, closed.
Oh wow.
It was nuts, dude. Well, because he goes down to
Matt's doing the math.
It's dice minus 3, right? Because it's 23 halved.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
And then your power 6 plus fury for 9.
no, you're 7
Power.
plus 3.
Oh, 7?
Yeah,
7 plus
so,
fury for
so you
10.
go up to 10, so it's dice minus 2, I
Yep, there you
believe,
go.
off the top of my head. And yeah, but I spiked the dice. That's not, that's not pick
It's not
nits about it.
average.
It's not average, but even I didn't think they would be able to do it, but there was still 2 other Nayslayers sitting there on it going, oh, I guess
I
we
mean,
don't need
that's
it.
12 over average, right?
Yeah.
12 and a bit over average.
It was
Yep.
good. It was good. But I had 2 more there that would have, it was good. It was fun.
10 and a bit over average, I guess. Sorry.
So yeah, that was it. It was a good game. He still won in the end, but it came down to it just came down to a lot of death and carnage.
It
and
was Death Clock, wasn't it?
yeah, we both
I
clocked
remember
our-
hearing the clock.
Yeah, I clocked myself, but we had switched the clock at one point and lost a bunch of time on my clock, so he gave me some extra time, and then he clocked himself, and then we were like, well, let's just play it through, and then we got to 7th round, we're like, I don't know. But then
Sounds like a mess.
But then he finally just got the last point, and we're like, there we go, done.
Oh, okay.
Whee! So anyway, that's a thing. Yeah, I still don't know whether it'll be my other list. I still think Old Witch might be a better choice just to handle ranged lists, but anyway.
So there's an interesting thing with Grimkin and metas. If you play in like the New York area, apparently Heretic Bump is really popular.
Mhm.
If you play pretty much anywhere else, Old Witch Bump is the way to go. I guess like maybe the EU has some like weird stuff going on too, but I had a lot of conversations about this over the weekend. It was pretty interesting to see the perspectives.
I just don't know. Like it's going to be weird going to SOO and dealing with something other than our local meta.
Yeah, you haven't had to fight anything other than Kador in like 6 years.
I know, right? Well, and the thing is that Old Witch would be really good into rocket spam. She's gonna be good into Signar, whereas Heretic's not gonna be as good into that because you don't have the way to shut down range. But anyway, it'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes. Enough of that crap. Nobody needs to hear about my scrub games. We've got other things to talk about. Let's talk about some of the news this week. So we got to see the Sorsha bus. Dallas entered his version of his version of it into Crystal Brush, so we know that.
The White Sorsha.
The white Sorsha.
Yeah.
So that's gone out there. I know we'll be seeing a few of those in painting competitions
Definitely.
coming up because I know a few people that ordered them. We had a few models sort of make the. We've seen a few. The Rocketeer, the Rocketeer girl, did that not?
Rocket
Yeah,
Girl.
the
Rocket-
Rocket Girl.
The Rocket Girl.
The alternate.
Where's my
Rocket
Rocket
Man
Girl?
sculpt.
Matt,
I have her over here
Matt's
somewhere.
looking
Oh, you got
around
it.
for his Rocket Girl.
Where's my Rocket Girl? Bring.
She's with all my pirates. I don't know where she went.
Servant,
She's
bring
over there
my
somewhere.
Rocket Girl. We got to see all the amazing stuff that came out of Crystal Brush this week.
Ugh.
There was some incredibly pretty stuff. What's interesting to me was there was not. Everybody seemed to do a lot of really interesting scenics and modifications on models.
Yeah.
You even pointed out that one of them was like hand sculpted.
Oh, the top 3 were all built from scratch.
That's crazy sauce.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Name of the Wind one.
Yeah.
I saw that and I'm like, I must have this model.
Yeah.
And I went searching around. Nobody actually produces the
Scratch
Name of
built.
the Wind model.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh crap.
Well, and that's a crazy. So that we talk a lot about painting on this show because that's more of my thing than anything else. But the crazy thing about that is that's a new level to me. Crystal Brush has
Oh,
always
yeah.
had a lot of that, but we're not. If
Building your own.
if all the top 3s are now people that are also incredible sculptors, that
Yeah.
just elevates everything to a crazy
Yeah.
sauce level. So third bit of news, of course, we have all the negative news coming out of the South right now from the hashtag fake news coming from Fox News about some scrub Canadian player coming in and cheating at Adepticon, taking all the prize support. No, we of course have our buddy Matt just came back from Adepticon and won. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And last but not least, the SOO is coming up next week.
Yeah.
So we're going to be there.
There is one more thing.
Oh, what else?
Just because there was a CID update today.
Oh, Ooh.
And they are officially rolling back or getting rid of immunities changes for the remainder
For the CID.
of the CID.
Yeah, they've done enough discussion on
Yeah.
that, basically, is
So
what they said.
we're going to have to wait and see till after that's completely done.
I think we'll still see the changes.
What
I think
did
that
they end up on? What was their final?
It was the +4 armor, I think.
as opposed to the extra die.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple changes that that aren't on the notes that they're considering, and some of them are pretty brilliant in their scope. It's pretty cool. So +4 armor is definitely one of the changes they're looking at, but they're also looking at a distinction of immunities immediately expiring on models that are immune instead of
right.
having +4 armor against their effects or not being affected by them. So that way it allows feats that require them to be
Still on fire or whatever.
on fire or something like
Yeah.
that to actually function.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, because that's a problem, right? There's certain things that need to be lit on fire, like your troll, the troll unit that needs to be on
yeah,
fire.
the
Fire eaters.
Fire eaters.
Oh, but a good example would be Horgel too.
Yeah.
So for his feat to do anything, the model has to be on fire. So the change is that when you would normally take a roll for it, it would just immediately expire instead.
Ooh.
I think this garners some discussion, so let's go around and talk about. I think one of the interesting things about this whole dealing with something as core mechanic as immunities,
Yeah.
and the way that they're dealing with it is super interesting. This gives us some insight as to what the long-term CID process can really do. We can really test these things out without destroying them. And, they can really test these things out without destroying metas. Now, right now, of course, everybody's up in arms about these changes. Some people are up in arms. Some people are super happy about it. We all, I think in general... Oh, did we lose him? Did we lose Matt?
No, I'm here, just doing some quick bird maintenance.
Oh, fair enough.
Wow. Yeah. Keep the camera off. For
Oh, yeah. I don't need to see your bird. So some of the things some of those things that are pretty cool. Anyway, Jason, what do you think about when we're dealing with core mechanics like this? Are PP handling it well? Is it a weird
I think
thing?
so. I think I would really like to see a distinction. I would like to see immunities kept somehow and resistances added.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I know it's probably
I'm
unrealistic
back.
and way too much work.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But I would like to see a distinction between
Immunities and
resistances.
George, what do you think? What's your feeling on how the CID? And this is the first time we've had a real big core mechanic dealt with. I think. I mean, there might have been a couple other ones, but this is a big one. Are they dealing with this well?
They seem to be. In fact, this is exactly the type of thing that CID is for.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they can say, okay, here is a core mechanic of the game. We want to change it to this. What do you guys think? And people can go, no, that's way broken. Here's how you solve that.
Right, Matt, what do you think?
I'm gonna I like the idea of them being able to tackle core mechanics and change them the way to better affect game health and all that stuff. But I'm gonna save any criticism or praise until after I see the result.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. Yeah. Okay, so other than that, please join us at the SOO next week. If you're going to be at the SOO, we will be around. We will be playing games. Jason is pretty much going to live in the Iron Arena this year.
Yeah, the Iron Arena.
You're going to farm points and get a fancy
poster.
poster. You're going to farm points and get a fancy poster.
I'm going to try to get a fancy something.
Yeah, you're going for a colossal this year. That's your goal.
Oh no.
No.
I want a fancy poster.
You're going for the signed poster.
Yeah,
That's
I told Marbles, my wife, that we're getting a fancy War Machine poster to hang up in the living room as a centerpiece. So
here's the difference between.
She's really excited about that.
Here's the difference between your wife and my wife. If I went to June right now, it's like, honey, I'm going to work at the SO to get a fancy poster. She'd be like, where are we going to put it? There's a nice bit of wall by the septic tank. Yeah.
Behind my head, actually, I have a Dreadrot poster.
I love those ones. The
artwork
for those is amazing.
I came back and I was like, I'm putting this on the wall there.
Yep.
Is that one of the ones from Capital City Bloodbath?
Yeah, it's the one I raffled or got in a bidding war with Josh over.
Oh yeah, cool.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the round table. Let's let Matt talk about stuff, and we're gonna learn some thingamabobs and some stuff. So let's talk a bit about your Adepticon experience. We had a whole show basically on your lead up to practicing and the reason why you attend so many cons. And you already told us about basically registering at the last minute and just showing up and taking all the prize support. So that's how you roll. But what lists did you decide to take into champions? When you look at your champions options, why did you choose those?
Oh, so I mean, Champions is a very interesting format, and the most recent Champions roster is actually really powerful. For most people, Champions is going to be like one to two very, very strong casters, and um, you know, the other two being like medium tier, mediocre, or like maybe just less inspiring. For Crix, you had Denegra 2, Agathea, Iacos 2, and Terminus. So the best possible pairing for that is probably Denny to Terminus. But I didn't want to have to paint my Ghost Fleet list. And I didn't really think it paired well in my pairing the way I wanted it to. And I just wasn't comfortable getting the games I needed to practice unpacking it and stuff. So I chose Agathea Slaughter Fleet, mostly because in my Masters pairing, I was playing Gorshade 1 Slaughter Fleet, so it made the overlap of models really easy to transport, which is a big concern when you're traveling on a train and then in a car and then doing the reverse on the way back. So part of that was ease of transport, part of that is ease of play, part of that is confidence that Denny 2 will be able to carry me through a lot more games than the off list will.
You've played several factions over the last year. Are you playing Crix because this is what you're planning on taking to the WTC? Is that the deal with that?
We just faction locked this week, so I'm locked into Crix.
Okay, perfect. George, hit it. You got a question? No. That's why we have. That's why we have these.
Deer and
That's why we
headlights.
have
Wait,
show
we
notes.
were supposed to have show notes?
Yeah, you've got it in front of you. That's the reason why I write them. You can just you can either ask your own question or one off of this list. He's on a lot of drugs, ladies and gentlemen. We have to re-explain. So we're going for the same job, huh?
Send them this tape.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
all right. So, so we faction locked in for our team for the WTC today. This week is our faction lock. We're picking casters and stuff to focus on. I faction locked in Crix, and I don't think there was even a discussion like, oh, maybe I'll play something else. I was like, no, I'm playing Crix. It's done.
Sweet.
Cool. So, you went to Adepticon. Tell us about the wonders that were your not champions games.
Oh, great. So let's talk about Masters very quickly. I played some games. There was War Machine, and then I went home and went to bed. It was great. And yeah.
And tell me about Game 4 then.
No, okay. So let's be real here. So Game 1. So my pairing was Denny 2 and Gorshade 1 Slaughter Fleet. The Gorshade 1 list is phenomenal. It absolutely trucks some factions. Just like Lamentation is one hell of a spell. So Game 1, I play Denny 2 into Axis in Destruction Initiative. And it's a really tight game, and very like the terrain was really awkward to play on because they had these hills that were just not good for playing models. And of course, like whenever you have terrain like that, for some reason the whole game ends up being centered around the hills. So like both me and my opponent spent like 20 minutes on our clock trying to proxy models on hills, and then just watching our proxy templates slide down the hill and being like, well, I guess that model's there now. And we played that game, and I won it on clock and scenario. There was a really funny moment in it where I walked Denny up, and he countercharged me with an inverter that had already used its dongulator. So he just like rolled like a 16 for damage on Denny and left her on 2 boxes.
Oh no.
And I was like, well, I almost just lost the game right there. And then, but because he countercharged me out of his control, the heavy wasn't there to contest the other side of the board. So I like shadow bound it and walked away. And I just won the game off of it, so it was pretty funny. Round 2, I played against Zach Watson, playing Haley 2, and I played Denny 2 again here, and I felt like this matchup was really good for me. So this game was really awkward. I lost this game, and if I could say anything about why I lost this game, it was under-rolling on a Strider significantly. Like, I put 2 Slayers into it and left it on 2 boxes. And then his Electro Leaps broke the arms on all my Slayers pretty much, which is unlikely. His lowest damage roll on Electro Leaps was 10s, which was really frustrating. And then he had a really good feat, and I lost on scenario on turn 7. But there was like multiple times where I was like, I just need to roll a boosted 11 here to win the game, and just couldn't get it to manifest. But he was a great opponent. We played a really good game, and it was really awkward. I was a bit tilted going into game 3. Game 3 was Shade 1 versus Gatsby 3 Nine Slayers, and I barely pulled this game out. It was another game of just like putting Charybdis into heavies and them not dying. It was just really like awkward dice for the first half, bad for me. And then in the second half, my opponent had the worst dice I think I've ever seen. Like, he puts 2 fully loaded Slayers into a Calamity Slayer and leaves it on 11 boxes. I'm like, sure, I guess I win the game now. Game 4. Now, the game I punted. Now, this is great. It's the Denny 2 mirror match. Denny 2 versus Denny 2, both in Black Industries. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty confident in my skill as a player. I think I'm going to win this game because I'm actually decent, maybe. And then I proceed to make a bunch of losing moves. So I start the game off strong. I get a good Hellmouth. I get good plays early on. I'm winning attrition. And then I just proceed to not contest or score points because I'm like, well, if I'm going to lose, I might as well lose horribly, I guess. And even after all of that, to win the game, all I needed to do was Hellmouth my own Slayer. Death Jack has 5 focus. I'm like, I can do all these things. And I just proceed to not do it.
For some reason?
Yeah, I just run Death Jack instead of Hellmouthing. Like, I'm a genius. And I just throw that game. Just absolutely throw it. And, like, if I win that game, there's a reasonable chance I top 8 that day. But apparently, I'm just terrible at this game. I threw that game really, really hard. I couldn't believe how hard I threw it.
And so the next day, he decided to just pay off all of his opponents.
So the next day was Friday, which is really awkward. For those of you who have been to a con, day 2 of a con being a Friday screws up the whole schedule. I kept saying, like, today's Saturday, right? Yeah, this has to be. But since I didn't qualify, and so none of us qualified, we just played Twilight Imperium in the board game room and, like, had a good time, went out to dinner with all the Americans.
How was that?
All of them?
That's a lot of Americans.
Brett Fogel had just won Masters on day 2, so we went out to dinner with Brett Fogel, Carl, a bunch of other people. I met a lot of people. There was just a bunch of people. We all went out to dinner, had a good time. It was a really good, fun conversation. And then was Saturday, which is day 1 Champions. And it's a pretty, Champions is all the same players, so it's a pretty tight field. And I got really lucky day 1, and I got really lucky day 2. And I got a lot of matchups that were playable for me, and I got a lot of decent dice when I needed them. And my opponents got pretty unlucky sometimes. It was pretty great, actually. I played against Chromac 2 in the first round, and I top of 2'd him with 2 Stalkers and Charybdis. I noodled him to death. It was pretty great. Turns out Gangfighter and Gangfighter and Parasite, are pretty good. Game 2, I played against Thyra in Guardians, and I played Denny 2. So he had like 30 guys, and I had Overlords and double Hellmouth. So that was like a 2-turn game.
Yeah.
It was great. Round 3, I played against Anthony Gibbs. Anthony Gibbs is a superb player, very clean, friendliest guy. That man is great. He played Cray 4 Centurions in Arcane Tempest Gunmage theme versus Denny 2, and it was a really tight positional game that was broken open by I ran an Arc Node and got a Venom and got Falk and Ayana, and that broke the entire matchup open and made it playable for me. And then we went and had dinner again. This is like the Adepticon experience is you play a tournament all day, then you go have dinner and drink, and then you play a tournament the next day. Then you go have dinner and drink.
That sounds like every con for me. Except
Yep.
Sit at a table, talk about other people playing games, go to dinner and drink.
Yep. It was good. Day 1 was a lot of fun. So day 1, Tim and I both top 8'd. So just so you guys have a frame of reference, going into the con, I was like, man, my pairing's really, really bad against Tim's pairing. This is literally all I talked about the entire con was like, man, I really hope I get to dodge Kolgrima and Borka-2 and Madrak 1. I want to dodge them really hard. I succeeded dodging them in Masters by losing like a scrub. I did not dodge them in Champions on day 2, and that's day 2. I played against Jesse Carmack, really cool guy. Legion matchup. It was Feana 2 Oracles versus Denny 2, and that was a really tight game. I ended up getting Death Jack on Feana and beating her to death.
Yeah, that's bad for Vienna.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I like breath dealered her, damnationed her, and then just charged a Death Jack into her. I was like, I guess you die now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Then I played Jake in the next round.
Double Legion, eh?
Yeah, Legion back to back,
Ugh.
and I played JVM, and it was a really, really good game. He had really bad dice, and it was great.
I guess that's the way you beat JVM, right?
Yeah, so that game was just like he just didn't get the dice he needed to do anything, and it wasn't like a little bit under average. It was like across his rolls he would hit really well. Like he'd be like, "Oh, an 11 to hit, this is great," and then like roll like a 4 for damage, and be like, "Oh, you need the reverse of that. You're hitting on 4s. Come on." And then like I was rolling average or above average on every roll. I don't think I ever under-rolled at any point. And I just ended up winning that on scenario because he had 3 heavies and I had 6, and that's really hard when you don't roll good enough to kill heavies, and I do.
What caster was he playing, Matt?
He was playing Thagrosh 1 in Children of the Dragon with Azrael, Zuriel, and Typhon.
Yeah.
That game was actually really good because Typhon doesn't have Pathfinder, which is something I knew going into that matchup. And we had this giant central forest. So as the fighting happened in the middle, I just kept rotating my battle group around the central forest to keep Typhon from engaging in the fight.
You son of a bitch.
I was like, well, he can run to get there, I guess, or trample. Sure. And Jake's like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Jake actually got me at one point. He trampled Zuriel. So there's the central forest. Zuriel can't walk up and reach me, but he sure can trample.
Yeah.
Unlike all those other Legion beasts that can't trample.
Yeah.
So he trampled and like cut off Death Jack's right arm and cortex, which is really bad for Death Jack.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was a really cool game. A lot of positioning, and Jake is, I think, one of the best players when it comes to positional play I've ever seen. His models are just almost always where he needs them to be, and he's a really humble guy when it comes to things like that. Very modest. It's really interesting. So like turn 1, he positioned his infantry really, really badly. Like some guys were facing the wrong direction. And like if you ever hear him talk about the game, he'll probably be like, "Oh, I'm an idiot. I mispositioned turn 1." But let me just say, the rest of that game was him positioning 100% correctly, cleanly, like very well into like multi-turn plan that just his dice did not reward him for. And then game 4. Or game 3 that day, I guess 3 rounds. I played against Tim in the finals. My one dodge.
Yeah.
So Tim had played the Denny 2 matchup earlier in the weekend, and he was like, "Well, that was a really good matchup for me. He basically couldn't win." And I was like, "Well, this is going to be great."
Who did he drop, Matt? Did he drop Berka, or what was?
He dropped Borka 2, which is actually I was expecting him to drop Kolgrima.
Yeah.
Which is a lot worse for me.
Yeah.
But he dropped Borka 2, and Borka 2 is unplayable too. Like that's a really hard matchup.
Yeah.
Mostly because I don't kill his heavies and he kills my heavies really well.
Mm-hmm.
So going into this game, I had kind of identified my win condition as assassination. I don't think there was any way I was going to win on attrition, and no way I was going to win on scenario. His feat's really good against me. His entire beast, like everything he does, is good against me. And I don't get to have a feat until after I kill his Creelstone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm basically playing a feat down, a bunch of spells down because he has Mulg with Arcane Vortex. And I have to somehow organize to trade my 6 heavies for his 4 heavies that I don't kill in one activation. Through a defensive feat.
Yeah.
So it's bad. It's going into the matchup. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I lost this game. Let's just try to not make it be a stomping, I guess. And I proceeded to get a couple key rolls to go my way that really opened up the game for me. So One of the plays that happened early on is I got the important part of this is I got to go first, which is huge in this matchup
That's
because
huge,
it
yeah.
enables me to take a huge area of the board and force him to either feet bottom of one, or kind of like just walk up in position and be like, well, can you alpha me hard enough that you punish me? And as it turns out, I got a really lucky Hellmouth, and Rock stumbled. I Hellmouthed, pulled Rock towards a whelp. Rock then stumbled forward an additional 3 inches to be outside of the Creelstone and Borka 2's control range. So then I got a bunch of Slayers on Rock and killed Rock.
Yeah.
So now Tim's starting off the matchup, Rock down.
Yeah, that's really early to lose Rock.
Yeah. So I also made another play this turn to kind of pull Mulg way off to the side. So, or the next turn, sorry. The next turn I ran an Overlord to contest the flag and zone, and Mulg was the only thing on that side that could clear it. So Mulg went and charged him all the way off to the other side of the table. So I had made this kind of like, I had constructed a game state where I had already gotten his Primal, his only damage and map buff, and now I had pulled his like Arcane Vortex, big, scary, magical heavy off to the other side of the table to not be relevant for, another 3 turns.
Yeah.
So, and because they're in the center of the table, there's this giant building. I had put Deathjack behind it. So he couldn't put Borka within 12 of Deathjack because I can go incorporeal and charge him through the house. So I had created this skew around the table so that I could actually play attrition. Conversely, Tim had been like, well, I don't really care about attrition. I'm just going to win by 5 on scenario in 2 turns. So he's like, well, I don't care if my beasts are on this side of the table because I'm going to take the zone, take the flag. That's going to be 2 on my turn. And then on your turn, you're going to contest and score like 1 point maybe. So it'll be 2-1. Then on my turn, I'll score another 2 and then kill your objective. And then it's basically game. And there's nothing you can do about it. So to just cut into the details here, Mulg had Fury, had spend Fury to kill the guy. So he had to frenzy, and there was a single model contesting the flag, an Overlord. So he needs a boosted 7 to hit him. He misses the boosted 7. So now all of a sudden, Tim has to either commit an Earthborn to kill the Overlord, which means he only scores 1 point instead of 2, or he has to commit Borka to kill the Overlord, which means that he has to spend Fury on Borka and position him in a way to do it. So he spends the Fury on Borka to do it, needs a boosted 9, misses the boosted 9. Then he tries to roll the hard 9, misses the hard 9. So now he repos Borka back. And now this was the key moment of the mistake. He repoed Borka back in Deathjack's line of sight around the building and within 12 of them.
Oh, no.
So looking at the table, I'm like, okay, well, I won this game unless he does something else. And he kills the Overlord with the Earthborn. So I kill the Creelstone and end up getting Deathjack on Borka and killing him.
Nice.
And that was my run.
It's a pretty good run.
Yeah, as it turns out. So basically, the Creelstone was centered so that it reached both sides of the table with its 9-inch aura, and I just pumped Venoms into it until it didn't have an aura anymore.
Oh,
Nice.
fair enough.
And then I get to have a feat, which means I get to be incorporeal and go through the house.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess the next thing is, Matt, you collect your trophy. This is your day. You've what's next? Like, where do you? So I mean, this is a pretty big deal. What's your plan as far as the? I mean, obviously SOO is next. Do you have a plan going forward for that?
So a couple things. This is my first big win, right? Like this is my I just played against some of the best players in the world, and I was able to get lucky enough and get the rolls I needed to win the games. And yeah, it was a really, really crazy journey. And I just want to say this, big part of winning anything, I've been told multiple times, is getting lucky. And as it turns out, the first con I go to without Agatha there, without Aggie, I just win it. It's fine.
Same thing.
Same thing.
So
Yeah,
Aggie's no longer allowed to go to cons with you.
Apparently,
She's going to be at the Sue, so I'm sorry.
There's a link, maybe. I don't know.
Less things bounce
we've
on
all
your head.
we've all felt it. We know what you're talking about. That's
Fluff
why.
vampire.
That's why I've never won anything ever.
Yes, that is exactly why.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean,
Otherwise, yeah,
you'd all be mine.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's next? I think the next. I mean, so winning that qualified me for the Iron Gauntlet unlock and load and got me a free ticket. So there's that. But the journey over the next 6 months, 7 months, 6 months, 5 months, until September is prep for the WTC. So that's going to as many cons as I can, getting as many games in as I can, and really pushing the boundaries of what I think what I think a good Crix pairing can do.
Sorry.
When do you have to list lock for WTC?
List lock? Isn't that like 2 months before the event?
Yeah, I think it's something. Well, I was assuming that you would know, being the one who's going.
Dude, he didn't even register for Adepticon. He's like, I'm Matt McSummers. What do I need to register and actually show up to shit for?
I was just wondering how many weird and wonderful things are you going to end up trying between then and now? Like, is this, you pretty much know the kind of list that you'll be taking and you're sort of practicing that style of list, or are you in full, I'm now playing Crix, what is there out there that nobody else will do?
So I'm locked into 6 casters. I'm getting my list. I'm locked into 3, and then I'm getting an additional 3 by the end of the week. And it's pretty safe to assume that it's going to include Denny 2, Gatsby 3, and Scar 3 as like core components. And I think the adventurous part of this is going to be settling on a pairing that covers the matchups I need to cover in my team while asking very specific and strong questions. That's what we're going to be exploring. So for those of you who have never been to a team event or really like had any kind of team things, the big thing in every event is you need to ask questions that are strong enough that you can get green matchup. So like the idea being, it's why like Gatsby 3 9 Slayers is such a strong list. Like there's only so many lists in the game that can like have a good matchup into it. So by having a question that strong, you're allowed to dictate a lot of how the matchup process goes. And like that's important to explore in this time frame, right? Like you need to understand what the limitations of your lists are.
Yeah. So you're thinking of those 3 casters, Matt. Obviously, you're going to do Black Industries for Denny 2 and Gatsby 3. What are you looking at for Scar 3?
Scar 3 can play in every theme in Crix. Like that's just the thing she can do.
That's kind of why I was curious, because I mean she's just amazing in every theme.
But Slaughterfleet is probably Scar 3's home.
Yeah.
Slaughterfleet is probably the best theme in Crix overall, and it's phenomenal.
Which is saying a lot, because they have some really good themes.
Fucking damn it.
I've been proxying out Slaughterfleet a lot, especially since the CID. And I am always impressed, especially with the new models. I'm always impressed by just what the list can do. Like, between the Repo 3 Smog Belchers, putting out clouds, and basically shutting down all living infantry.
Yeah, Smog Belchers are gross.
And like your jacks being, casual mat 9s and power 20s or power 18s, like for 10 points, it's phenomenal. Everything about that list, everything that Theme Force wants to do is good. And Scar 3 really adds onto that in a way no other Crix caster does.
Are you going to play both events at SOO, or are you just going to do one of the two?
I'm planning to do both, but there's like a weird limitation of my drive to paint. So if I can, we'll see. I have to paint 14 models. It's not that unrealistic that I get it done. I can maybe do it in a day or two. But I also have a lot of games set up with people. One of my big regrets about Adepticon is I didn't spend any time doing Iron Arena.
Right.
I was just too worn out at the end of the day, and there's a few people who I was supposed to play with that I just never had the brain power or free time to do. And I'm really trying to step up and actually follow through on my stuff at the SOO.
And the reason I asked that is because one of the funny things about you and I is we both played Mercs at the same time for years. So you and I would have these great Merc conversations, and then we both switched factions. And I don't think you and I have ever actually got a game in together. So
we've had a Who's the Boss game.
Oh, we had that one Who's the Boss game, which was terrible.
So it was you were playing a Mercs list without Osram. You were playing a non-Osram
list. Terrible list that I should never have played.
It was whatever Who's the Boss thing was. And I was playing a Jack list in Kador. No, I was playing Convergence. I was playing double tap Convergence.
That's right.
And I had Durst as my caster.
It was disgusting.
I was like, you're like, I got all these guns, and I was like, I have all these taps with D-Cell. What do I do?
Yeah.
I played with Matt once.
Matt touched me in my no place.
I played Matt at FTB during a tournament, and he was playing the Heretic. It was terrifying, but I got the Heretic down to one box.
Ooh.
And then I died.
So Cankerworm rolled a 17 for damage on Heretic.
Yeah.
This is the insane thing about this conversation. This is like you and I have like no real solid memories of these games at all. Matt's
just like,
well, it was round 2. You had just activated these 14 things, and I rolled a 17.
that one time that fucking scrub Maelstrom almost.
There's
beat
a
me.
reason. There is a reason why I will never be a top tier player, ladies and gentlemen. It's because I don't remember. I don't have eidetic memory of all of my games ever.
One of the things about War Machine and like memory and stuff like that is your skill in War Machine is roughly equivalent to the experience you've had playing War Machine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, it's a lot like being an RPG character, right? Like the more experience you have, you achieve levels.
Yep.
And having a good memory helps retain those levels a lot.
Hold on, Matt. You ding every time you go up a level, don't you? You're like in the back of your head. You're like ding.
Not joking though. One of my favorite things this year so far has been being part of a WTC team chat, because I've never felt so supported whenever something happens. Like going into Masters, I was like, oh guys, I'm a little bit nervous. My whole team's like, you got this, rallying behind me, cheering me on. And then I proceed to punt the game. And they're just like, oh, it's fine. You got champions. You can do it. And then I go through champions, and they're like, do you feel like you leveled up? And I was like, yeah. Like that experience of like, you feel like you've unlocked something, like you feel like you've gained some kind of knowledge, is definitely a real experience.
All right, we're going to put that behind, the Adepticon chat behind for a little bit. I want you to hit the focus button there, buddy. It's time for... Focus! We are 2 weeks away from our favorite con, which is the SOO. It's the one where all of our friends all hang out. We've got... Unfortunately, we just heard this week that a couple of our favorite podcasters that made it last year are not going to be able to make it this year just because of life and the universe and everything. But a lot of our Moose Machine Network buddies are going to be there. We got the Beer Machine guys are going to be there this year. Of course, Party Foul is going to be there this year. Chain Attack, Combo Smite. And we're going to be doing another State of the Game podcast that's already been organized to talk to Rich.
Arcane Assist.
Sorry, and Arcane Assist, of
and
course.
Not Snakes Gaming.
Thank you. You could have just filled in instead of being
shout out to the
smarmy about
Sorettis.
it. Yeah.
Shout out to the Sorettis.
We will be doing the State of the Game podcast this year. All three of us will be participating in it, and all of the podcasts that we just mentioned.
And Troll Blood Scrum.
Of course, Troll Blood Scrum. But I mean, Fraser's just he's the Prime Minister of War Machine. We
just assume he's.
I don't even need to mention him. I mean,
it's just an assumption.
It's just an assumption at this point. So just to mention those people, we will be doing the State of the Game podcast again this year. I know Tim and the guys are pretty excited about the whole deal. That is an interesting cast. If you didn't join us for last year's cast, we bring some of the better minds in War Machine and ourselves.
And this time when I drag Matt in the door, he won't go, I'm Matt and George told me to be here.
Yeah. Which is funny if you think
that's what happened last year.
Yeah, if you think about the perspective on that
How
crap.
time flies.
See?
I mean, that was basically a year ago, right?
Yeah, it was almost exactly a year ago.
So we'll sit. What we do is we sit in a room, we chat about the current state of the game, things that are going on. Last year was a pretty big conversation because there was
a lot
going on. This year will be a bit of a different conversation because we're getting into the sediment is settling on Mark III.
The salt has begun to...
the salt is always flowing.
Well,
the salt must flow.
I think we can actually say that we're now playing Mark III.
Yes, we're really...
We're now actually... There was a lot of shaking out that had to happen in the last year.
Yep.
And I think that happened.
I mean, this would be a good topic to cover at the State of the Game.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's really actually what the focus of it's going to be is like, where are we sitting in the... Well, we're going to talk about the state of the game. Who's lying? There'll probably be a bunch of stuff. People will yell at each other and we'll drink beer.
That's what we do.
So I guess what I wanted to sort of talk about is we're going to talk about this again next week with Matt and Tim, who have very different perspectives on what to do and how to handle a con, because they're con runners as opposed to con goers. But we four you two attend a ton of cons. Jason and I attend the local pub night, and the Sioux. We'd love to change that, but this is a good time to give some advice to people who this may be their first time going to a big con. They may be worried about a big con. They might not want to enter into Masters or Champions just because they're intimidated after this incredible conversation about very high-level games that most of us will never, ever play. We'll start with George. Give us sort of your top advice for your, first-time con goers.
Well, the biggest piece of advice I would have if you're thinking about going to a con is actually go. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to go to the Sioux, but I'm nowhere near good enough. That is bullshit. There are so many horrible people that go to the Sioux. Just look
I go every year.
I was going to say, just look at this table.
I go for the drinking.
There's 3 scubs at this table. You're probably better than all 3 of us. So
6-2-1, yes.
Yeah. 6-2-1. I heard it as 3-2-1.
Yeah, I heard it was 3-2-1 too. Why is it 6 now?
We'll get to that. In
Somebody
just a
said
second.
their standards really high.
6 meals a day, 6 beers a day,
6 beers a day,
2 meals
Only
a day, and 1
6.
shower.
Six
Only
beers
6?
an hour.
Anyway, you should go is the first thing. The second thing, you are good enough to play in every tournament. Play as many games as you want to.
Oh, thanks,
I would
G.
suggest being in at least one organized event for your con. So pick one, Masters, Champions, even a fun one like a spell draft or something if they're on the docket. But make sure you do at least one big organized thing, because that will give you a little bit more experience and comfort with the event happening. The second thing is everybody in the room is as big a nerd as you are. So do not hesitate to say hi to everybody, to play.
Hold on, except for Bubba.
Well, yeah. But we don't talk about Bubba. But Bubba, for some reason, is a normal human that just wandered into
I
a
wouldn't
War
go that
Machine
far.
game.
Yeah,
I
no, he's
definitely
not a
wouldn't go
normal
that far.
human. He's
I
just
think normal is definitely
Normal is-
pushing the envelope on
yeah.
that.
That's the thing. Yeah, we're
So-
all.
I tried, Bubba.
Yeah, I
Let-
wouldn't go that far.
Let's go over to Matt. Matt, what are your?
do you
You've been
think of Bubba?
you've been attending a lot. What do you think of Bubba? You've been attending a lot of
He's
cons.
not allowed to say that on air. I
Do you
heard.
have some sort of like your how you? I mean, you got the con crud because you must not have brought enough Purell. But what are your sort of general con pieces of advice?
Bump elbows?
You're gonna get con crud. There's no stopping it. Just accept that it's a thing that's gonna happen and be prepared for it when you get home. It's always when you get home. My first real piece of advice, and this is the big one for me, is find a group of people you can go with. Whether it's like you don't have to go with them, you don't have to do the travel with them, but find people you can be with when you get there. You don't have to have the plan. You don't have to like have this thing in advance, but find some people that you can get along with. It's super important to enjoying the con. Lately, it's been me and Tim and all the other guys that go, and for it would be me, Bubba, David, all those guys. Just go through the effort of making the social connections. It's worth it. I'm not a big social guy. Like I tend to do the alone at home thing a lot. But just go through the effort to it makes the experience so much better. Don't say no to things. Just be like, someone asks you if you want to play an Iron
hold
Maiden
on.
game.
Unless Jason asks you to just say no.
There's
Just-
nothing wrong. There's nothing in that alley. It's fine.
Oh, dear
We'll
God. Sorry.
bring a flashlight.
Sorry, continue.
Just say yes to doing events. Like, go play the Masters. Go play 2-3 rounds. Drop if you have to. Try to get as many games in as you can. Like, a con. So basically, the way con season works is there's a limited amount of con time, and unless you make the most of it, you're just wasting your time and money, right? So like, go do the most you can. Don't only go play War Machine unless you want to. Like, if you want to go play board games, find some people who are interested in playing in board games. If you want to play Magic the Gathering at the Sioux, wait till at night and go buy some packs or something.
Wait till late at night. Go to the Honest Lawyer. Bring some Magic the Gathering cards. It'll be cool. It's cool. It's cool.
But at the end of the day, like every con is just a giant social gathering. So try to get the most out of it you can. There's no reason to be intimidated or frightened or like scared of playing anyone. This was like a big thing for me when I first went to my first con, was like, man, I don't want to play those people because they're savages. They're gonna beat me over the head with my own list. Turns out those people lose games too to scrubs all the time.
I like Adepticon
And
in the finals of champions.
You are going to learn so much more from playing someone who is good. And it is my experience that all the best players are also the most fun people to play
totally.
games against.
Well, there's a reason. So I want to add to that. We here, the four of us, and guys like Tim, pretty much every podcaster in the podcasting group, we all love playing games. And if you are at the con and don't feel like you know people, but you know us because you've listened, you're one of the 4 people that listen to us on the internet. Come talk to us. Come have a game with us. You're going to be in the Iron Arena the whole time.
I've already got games set up with 3 out of 4 of our listeners.
Right, there you go. And that's one. Your wife, and you've got them all.
Yeah.
Your mom. If your mom would just come to the SOO,
I hear your mom's hot.
we'd all get a
Jesus
game in.
Christ.
But on a very real note, guys, cons are a really fun experience, and don't do things you don't want to do. Like first rule, do what seems fun. If you just want to sit around and watch games, do that. If you want to play games, do that. If you want to dress up in a corn suit for one day at the con for some reason and have everyone call you the Adepticorn,
I hear
you
that's
can do
because
that
you lost
too.
a bet.
I mean, we know why he did it, but we don't talk about the reason why. But that's the thing. We're all here to have fun. We're all just big gaming nerds, pretty much. So show up, have fun, play games.
I think that pretty much covers all the points I wanted to make. And shout out to all the people that are going to be there. And straight up, honestly, if you want to get a game in, or you just want to hang out and talk about War Machine, this is the place to do it. You're a nerd. We're nerds. We're all gonna have a good time nerding out together.
Something
George.
to mention. John is actually going to make it.
Even though he did.
Even though Muse isn't going to be there.
Yes, John is going to be there. I did talk to John a bit today, or a couple of days ago. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. I unfortunately am on a real death clock tonight. My wife is going to pick me up just after 9, so it's time for
The Lightning Round.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the 10 toughest questions in all of War Machine that I ask tonight, this Wednesday. If I can read my own handwriting. We all know how this works.
Matt answers 9 questions correctly, and we make
And then-
smart-ass noises.
And then at the 10th question, we go, huh?
And everybody goes, wait, that was a book? My guess is the Minty Fresh question is about Monpok, because that just came back.
Okay, question number 1. What does the power finisher do? Oh, I'm going to have to give that to Maelstrom.
You get an additional die on models who have already taken damage.
Correctamundo. Question number
That
2.
turn?
On your attack.
No, there's no turn limitation. It's
There's
just
no
models
turn
with
limitation?
damage.
Shh. Quiet, peanut gallery.
What is the what is the POW of the Hooch Holler mount?
Eh.
Holy crap, you're on the ball tonight. I'm going to have to give it to you again, Jason.
POW 14.
It is POW 14. Whoa, head 2! He can win Adepticon, but he can't beat the aim powers of Maelstrom.
I was already shit-talking Matt on Discord this morning, say I was going to win tonight. So
So you're just going to buzz in early on every question?
He's just going to start buzzing in early because
Okay.
it's latency.
I've been waiting for the questions to be done reading. I guess I'll change my
you
strategy.
just yell. Question number 3. Gorshade's weapon is called what?
Which Gorshade?
Gorshade 1. It's Voss. Voss is the name of the weapon. Voass.
No, that's Gorshade 2's weapon.
Okay, well then you would have. Are you just saying that?
No, Gorshade 2's weapon is Voss. It's the weapon of Nissor.
Okay, I could be wrong.
Well,
it happens.
I'm getting a point.
I'll give you the point just for calling me on my own bullshit. Question number 4. What is the rat of the gun mage officer? Matt.
8.
It is 8. So we're tied. Tie game.
technically, I mean,
Technical
yeah, sure.
tie.
I mean,
Because he called me on my bullshit. It's because I didn't write down which Gorshade it was. Question number 5. What does an Argus Moonhound's Animus do?
Eh.
Matt.
So it's the beacon with +2 to range attacks within 5 inches of it,
Incorrect.
and removes stealth.
It does remove stealth. We'll take a look at the beacon part. I thought it just removed stealth within 5 inches, but I could be wrong because that's happened before.
You're often wrong.
Question number. I'll give you another point because you got the 5-inch stealth thing. What is Crow's Crow's a gun called? What is Matt?
Hiss.
It is Hiss. Question number 7. Blythe and Jason.
Bull.
Yes.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! You pooped that
Oh,
out. You had to
pooped
like
it
go
out.
deep into the bowels on
yeah.
that one.
I went deep.
Question number 3. What 3 benefits does Reinhold give?
We're doing question 3 again.
Sorry, it's question number 8. Matt.
Lucky Charm, Reloader, and then the remove stealth one.
Correctamundo.
Spyglass. I think
Question
that's
number
sure.
9. How far does pull push? Jason.
Pull doesn't push. Pull pulls.
Incorrect. Pull pushes. Matt.
Into base to base.
Correctamundo.
So pull is a rule on the Bogtrog ambushers.
and it pushes
For
them an
reference.
unlimited distance towards the base till they come in contact.
Ladies and gentlemen, the minty fresh question of the evening is: during Vinter Railthorn the Fourth's head inquisitor. During Vinter Railthorn the Fourth's.
You can't
I'm
even
guessing.
read it.
Well, I'm trying to read it. There's a spelling mistake here. During his reign, what was the head inquisitor named?
So
I got it.
Okay,
Ready?
go, Matt. Go.
His name was Lord Inquisitor.
Totally 8 points to Matt. He wins. No. It's, anybody else want to give a guess?
no.
No. Guess.
Dude face.
It's close. Dexter Sirac.
That should be a point.
Dexter Sirac. Close. Pretty much
That's what
dude
I
face.
said,
I
word
gave
for
I give
word.
I give 8 points to Matt and 1 point to you. There you go.
What?
I do have to say, unfortunately, you came on strong at the beginning,
Yeah.
but our new champion is Matt McMullen. Yay!
Reluctant clapping.
Reluctant clapping. You did good though. You tried.
Yeah, I tried.
And that's really what it's all about.
So hiss is incorrect, I'm being told.
What?
Why?
I don't know.
No, it's not.
That's just what Brian said.
That happens.
Nobody
Don't
listens to Brian.
That's the name of his gun.
His weapon's name is his. I don't know why there's a question.
Well, maybe it's because it's the leader's name. But that's if you knew the lore, the leader they change like they're like I'm Spartacus. They're the I'm Spartacus
I
unit.
don't know.
All right.
All I know is I can't kill the goddamn leader.
That's true
Oh,
too.
he's saying that there's no model named Crow in the game. So.
Actually,
But there is in the
let's
lore.
see.
There is in the lore. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Because he is called the leader in
He
the.
is
But in the
leader.
lore,
Interesting.
Crow has
He's
hiss,
the leader of his.
and he's the leader. But the problem
his
is every
cutthroats.
time you kill
The
Crow,
person that is Crow.
person next to him says, "Ha! You didn't kill Crow. I've been Crow the whole time." Okay, so we're gonna end off the evening by we got to do a couple of shout outs. First off, is there going to be a Troll Blood Scrum tonight? Has Fraser spoken up yet?
I think so.
I think there might be
I
too.
think there might be.
He's been on the cast, so that usually means he's preparing for something
Yes.
wonderful. So stay tuned to
Or
the
has
Moose
nothing else to do.
or nothing else to do. Stay tuned to the Moose Machine Network for that. We will be seeing Fraser in a week's time. We'll drag him out to make him do fun stuff.
Hell yeah.
George, what events other than the SOO do you have under your belt for the local area?
Nothing that I've got under my belt right now, but there was. I say this in the past tense. There is a tournament coming up. It is a team tournament. It filled up within about 3.5 seconds.
That happens for team tournaments.
So I'm going to say there was one organized.
If you're a part of it, you get to go.
Yeah, exactly. But once the Sioux is over, there's going to be another out-of-the-box series tournament that's going to happen in April. We don't have a date for that yet. Okay.
Anything going on in your area, Matt, that you want to talk about?
Yes, I do actually. Montreal's going to have a World Ender qualifier and a TGX ticket giveaway. Happening in April and May. I'm going to put up dates and shit like that. I just need to confirm with my store the dates, but the TGX one will be in April and the World Ender will be in May.
Nice.
quick shout outs. Of course, we got to give props to our buddies out of the box. They are actually making sure that the internet is paid, or helping to pay for some of the internet at the SOO this year so that you can see stream games. They're also making sure that we can afford to go.
They're also a hell of a store.
They are a hell of a store. I just talked to Dan today, and one of the because I was in picking up our SOO ill-gotten gains, as well as another unit of Nayslayers because I hear they're good. He was saying one of the things he wants to start doing is pre-orders. So if you are in, there's a couple different cool things that he wants to do. So if you're interested in a model that's not released yet, that he's going to try to, he's going to get them on the website early so that you can place a pre-order and he can guarantee it for you on the day of release.
That's pretty sweet.
So that's number one, and that's going to be on the online store. The second thing that he's talking about doing is this is a bit of news we didn't talk about. There's going to be a change in the way that PP does models. We already know about the huge base models. In the States, it's only going to affect the SKUs. But what he was saying was if we wanted to do exclusive an order for some of those exclusive models, he's got a place in the States where he can get them shipped to, and he'd be willing to do a large package shipment for the Ottawa or for people that want to order through him, so that we could all sort of save that tax and everything else.
What a guy, man.
So that's something coming up. I'll tell
amazing.
you when it happens and how it's going to work when the time comes. So basically, we could just pool a big order through Privateer Press of stuff that
I'm in.
which would be a lot better than one of us on the OGWC website going, hey, I'm going to place an order, and then 40 people trying to get on board for it and then collecting money for a month and a half.
It's a mess.
So that's happening. I want to thank the guys from Muson Minis. Muson Minis is changing hands, which is a pretty crazy thing. Jason Watts is going to come in and take over as the GM on that one. Is it Watts?
Jay Larson.
Jay Larson, sorry.
I was just going to say, Watt is involved?
Well, no.
I didn't know that.
See, I say things, and you guys are supposed to correct me before I say the wrong thing.
Before?
Yes, that's generally
We don't
how.
have Future Sight. We don't have
You should
Future
figure
Sight.
that crap out.
I didn't spend anything on Future Sight.
So that's happening. However, John will be at the SOO, so you'll be able to talk to him. He gets to play games now.
He'll be there, do a couple magic drafts.
So yeah, we want to thank them for keeping us on the air and making sure that you hear us. And that is pretty much all she wrote. I will be bringing some Crooked Mile to the SOO, so if you want to try some of my beers, I'll have them with me.
Gonna bring a keg.
No, we're not bringing in keg. I can't. They don't pay me enough for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, Matt. Hey, save a game for each of us. We'll see you next week.
See you, Matt.
See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, hit that button. Dice down.
Dice down. Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
And now's the part of the cast where Matt and George talk about their world.